A new continent submerged in the ocean is now mapped. If you know where to look, you can find the new continent in the Google map. Watch the full video to know about this newly found and mapped continent called Zealandia and discover it on your Google map in your smartphone. Let's start a factful trip to Zealandia. As we know, the most widely agreed upon fact is that there are 7 continents in the world, namely Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Australia, and Antarctica. In 1995, the geologist Bruce Leuwenhoek proposed the concept of Zealandia as a potential continent which got lost under the water millions of years ago. Many geologists from New Zealand, Australia, and New Caledonia support the fact that Zealandia qualifies to be a full-fledged continent rather than a microcontinent. GNS Science, a geohazard research and consultancy organization owned by the government of New Zealand, has now come up with a new suite of maps that capture the long-lost continent with details that was never before explored. Many geologists have now started accepting Zealandia as a continent which is submerged beneath the ocean water for most of its part. To know where exactly Zealandia is located, see this map. Right beside Australia, the considerably huge chunk of land elevated from the ocean crust is named Zealandia. This is also the continent on which the island New Zealand is located. Pacific Ocean surrounds New Zealand and submerges most part of this continent. To be more specific, about 94% of the continent is submerged in southwestern Pacific Ocean. A very valid question comes to our mind at this point of time. If 94% of a landmass is covered in ocean water, why do we even bother to consider it a continent after so many days of mapping the world map? The answer to the question lies in how exactly we define continent. The definition of a continent is not based on whether or not it lies beneath or above the water surface. There can be huge water bodies inside a continental area, and we still consider those areas as part of the continent. Besides, a considerable part of almost all the continents is also submerged inside ocean water. The edges of a continent, for example, such a part is called submarine continental shelf. Look at this image. It clearly shows that a continent mass is different from an ocean floor, and the edges of the continent can be submerged inside the ocean water. Yet, these areas are part of the continent mass. The geographical continent might end where the water bodies begin, but the geological continent can extend beneath the water surface. Therefore, the differentiating point between an ocean and a continent is not the water level, but the composition of the crust. So what exactly is the continent crust made of? To start with, continental crust is made up of a wide range of rocks such as igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary that includes granite, sandstone, limestone, and many other rocks. On the other hand, the oceanic crust is made up of dense black igneous rock basalt. Geologists have found all these varieties of rocks in plenty throughout Zealandia. Secondly, the thickness of continent crust is quite different from the thickness of oceanic crust. Geological research shows that thickness of most of the continents vary from 30 to 46 kilometers compared to the thickness of oceanic crust, which is only about 7 kilometers. The thickness of Zealandia varies from 10 kilometers to 40 kilometers, which is pretty much above the thickness of usual oceanic crust. Apart from these properties, the elevation of the landmass also determines whether it qualifies for a continent. The Google map clearly shows that Zealandia is not at all at the same level of the sea. It is in fact several kilometers above seabed, with New Zealand, New Caledonia and several other small islands above the sea level. Last but not least, the size matters too. How big a land should be to qualify as a continent? Let's see. Here is the list of a few continents and countries. The Zealandia, with its 5 million square kilometer of area, lies somewhere between the smallest continent Australia and the largest island Greenland. Its size is almost 2/3 of the size of Australia and more than double the size of Greenland. And it is way bigger than the biggest microcontinent named Madagascar, which is spread around an area of only 0.8 million square kilometers. Therefore, to summarize, Zealandia qualifies as a continent on the following important features that are typical to a continent: the crust type, the crust thickness, the elevation, the size. Therefore, it is pretty much safe to say that Zealandia has a good chance to become a widely accepted continent on Earth and become the only continent with majority of its area submerged underwater. Now that sounds like a cool place for your next vacation. Well, while you plan for your next vacation, as promised, let us now show you how to navigate to Zealandia on your Google map. To see Zealandia, visit Google Map website or open the Google Map application on your smartphone. Switch to the satellite view of the Google Map and search for New Zealand. The elevated land that you see around New Zealand is the continent Zealandia. There you go, you have successfully discovered Zealandia. That's all for the video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel to see more such interesting videos that we bring only for you. See you again on the next one.